Welcome to the Bible Quiz and Trivia channel. Today, we're exploring the powerful messages of the Book of Amos with 30 thought-provoking questions that will challenge your understanding of justice, prophecy, and divine judgment. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like this video to support our content. After the quiz, share your score in the comments. We love seeing how well you do. Are you ready? Let's get started. Question 1. What is the occupation of Amos before he becomes a prophet? A. Carpenter. B. Shepherd. C. Stonemason. D. Scribe. Answer: B. Shepherd. Amos was a shepherd before he was called to be a prophet, which he mentions explicitly, suggesting a background of humble beginnings and practical experience in dealing with flocks. Amos 1:1, 7:14-15. Question 2. From which town does Amos originate? A. Bethlehem. B. Tekoa. C. Jerusalem. D. Nazareth. Answer: B. Tekoa. Amos is specifically identified as being from Tekoa, a small town in Judah, which provides context for his outsider perspective when prophesying to the northern kingdom of Israel. Amos 1:1. Question 3. To which kingdom does Amos primarily prophesy, Israel or Judah? A. Israel. B. Judah. C. Both equally. D. Neither. He prophesies to surrounding nations. Answer: A. Israel. Although from Judah, Amos's prophecies are primarily directed towards the northern kingdom of Israel, addressing its social injustices and religious corruption. Amos 1:1, 7:15. Question 4. What social issue is most prominently addressed in the Book of Amos? A. Idolatry. B. Social injustice. C. Military aggression. D. Ritual purity. Answer: B. Social injustice. Amos is particularly concerned with issues of social injustice, including the exploitation of the poor and needy and corruption in the marketplace and legal systems. Amos 5:11-12, 8-4-6. Question 5. What specific sins of Israel are condemned by Amos? A. Idol worship and temple desecration. B. Oppression of the poor, bribery, and greed. C. Incorrect festival observances. D. Lack of military strength. Answer: B. Oppression of the poor, bribery, and greed. Amos condemns the sins of oppression, bribery, and greed, highlighting how the wealthy and powerful in Israel exploit the vulnerable members of society. Amos 5:11-12. Question 6. What natural disasters does Amos use to describe God's judgment? A. Earthquakes and floods. B. Locust plagues and drought. C. Lightning storms and hail. D. Volcanic eruptions and tsunamis. Answer: B. Locust plagues and drought. Amos uses the imagery of locust plagues and drought to symbolize the coming divine judgment, reflecting the agrarian disasters as metaphors for God's punishment. Amos 4-6-9. Question 7. What does Amos say about the day of the Lord? A. It will be a day of joy and redemption. It will be a day of darkness, not light. C. It will bring wealth and prosperity. D. It will be unnoticed and insignificant. Answer: B. It will be a day of darkness, not light. Amos warns that the day of the Lord, contrary to popular belief, will be a day of darkness and not light, indicating judgment and calamity rather than salvation. Amos 5:18-20. Question 8. How does Amos describe the opulence and complacency of the wealthy in Israel? A. As a sign of God's favor. B. As a temporary and illusionary state. C. With admiration and praise. D. As lying on beds of ivory and neglecting the poor. Answer D. As lying on beds of ivory and neglecting the poor. Amos criticizes the opulence and complacency of Israel's wealthy by describing them as lying on beds of ivory, a symbol of luxury, while ignoring the plight of the poor and needy. Amos 6-4. Question 9. What metaphor does Amos use to describe Israel in Amos 8-1-2? A. A roaring lion. B. A basket of summer fruit. C. A withering plant. D. A crumbling wall. Answer B. A basket of summer fruit. Amos uses the metaphor of a basket of summer fruit to describe Israel, symbolizing the nation's ripe condition for judgment and the imminence of its end. Amos 8-1-2. Question 10. What role does justice play in Amos' prophecies? A. It is incidental. B. It is central, demanding righteous behavior and fairness. C. It is deemed outdated. D. It is only relevant to kings and rulers. Answer B. It is central, demanding righteous behavior and fairness. Justice is a central theme in Amos' prophecies, as he demands that Israel practice fairness and righteousness, particularly in their treatment of the poor and in judicial matters. Amos 5:24. Question 11. What famous phrase about justice does Amos use that was later quoted by Martin Luther King Jr.? A. Justice rolls down like waters. B. Let justice be done though the heavens fall. C. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. D. The arm of justice is long. Answer A. Justice rolls down like waters. Amos famously declares that justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream, a powerful call for pervasive and enduring justice. Amos 5:24. Question 12. What does Amos prophesy about the restoration of the Davidic dynasty? A. It will never be restored. B. It will be replaced by a new dynasty. C. It will be restored and raise up the fallen booth of David. D. It will become a secondary power. Answer C. It will be restored and raise up the fallen booth of David. Amos prophesies the restoration of the Davidic dynasty, envisioning a time when the fallen booth of David is raised up, symbolizing the revival and enduring nature of David's royal line. Amos 9:11. Question 13. How does Amos use the imagery of a plumb line? A. As a tool for destruction. B. To symbolize divine protection. C. As a measure of Israel's fidelity to God's law. D. To represent agricultural prosperity. Answer C. As a measure of Israel's fidelity to God's law. Amos uses the imagery of a plumb line to symbolize how God will measure Israel's fidelity to his laws and standards, implying a lack of deviation from divine justice. Amos 7-7-8. Question 14. What are the consequences Amos predicts for Israel's neglect of the covenant? A. Unprecedented prosperity. B. Return to nomadic life. C. Exile and destruction. D. A new covenant with other nations. Answer C. Exile and destruction. Amos predicts that the consequences of Israel's neglect of the covenant will be exile and destruction, highlighting the severity of their disobedience and the certainty of divine judgment. Amos 5:27. Question 15. How does Amos contrast the worship practices of Israel with their ethical behavior? A. He finds both equally commendable. B. He criticizes their worship but praises their ethics. C. He praises their worship but criticizes their ethics. D. He criticizes their hollow worship and lack of justice. Answer D. He criticizes their hollow worship and lack of justice. Amos contrasts Israel's religious practices with their ethical behavior, by criticizing their hollow worship rituals and emphasizing their failure to uphold justice and righteousness, indicating a disconnect between their religious observance and moral conduct. Amos 5:21-24. Question 16. What historical event contextualizes Amos' prophecies? A. The fall of Rome. B. The Exodus. C. The division of Solomon's kingdom. D. The Assyrian expansion. Answer D. The Assyrian expansion. Amos's prophecies are contextualized by the expansion of the Assyrian Empire, a significant threat during the time Amos was active, which eventually led to the conquest of Israel. Amos 1-5, 5:27. Question 17. What does Amos predict about the foreign nations surrounding Israel? A. They will ally with Israel. B. They will become vassal states to Israel. C. They will face divine judgments similar to Israel. D. They will convert to worshiping the God of Israel. Answer C. They will face divine judgments similar to Israel. Amos predicts that the foreign nations surrounding Israel will also face divine judgments for their sins, indicating that God's justice is universal and not limited to Israel alone. Amos 1-3, 2-3. Question 18. How does Amos's background as a shepherd influence his prophetic imagery? A. It has no influence on his prophecies. B. He frequently uses agricultural metaphors. C. He focuses solely on urban issues. D. He avoids using any metaphors or imagery. Answer B. He frequently uses agricultural metaphors. Amos's background as a shepherd and a tender of sycamore fig trees influences his use of agricultural metaphors and imagery throughout his prophecies, making his messages relatable to the agrarian society of his time. Amos 7:14-15. Question 19. What accusations does Amos make against the religious leaders of his time? A. They are too humble. B. They enrich themselves at the expense of others. C. They are overly generous. D. They support foreign gods. Answer B. They enrich themselves at the expense of others. Amos accuses the religious leaders of this time of corruption, specifically enriching themselves at the expense of others and leading the people astray from true worship. Amos 2-6, 5:12. Question 20. What is the booth of David that Amos refers to? A. A literal tent where David camped. B. A metaphor for the ruined state of the monarchy. C. A new temple that David planned to build. D. A festival booth used during religious celebrations. Answer B. A metaphor for the ruined state of the monarchy. The booth of David refers to the fallen state of the Davidic dynasty, which Amos prophesies will be restored, symbolizing the restoration and revival of the Israelite monarchy. Amos 9:11. Question 21. How does Amos address the issue of false security in Israel? A. He encourages it as a sign of faith. B. He warns against complacency and false security. C. He ignores the issue entirely. D. He supports it to boost morale. Answer B. He warns against complacency and false security. Amos addresses the issue of false security in Israel by warning against complacency and the mistaken belief that they are beyond the reach of judgment due to their chosen status. Amos 6:1. Question 22. What vision of locusts and fire does Amos describe, and what did they symbolize? A. Prosperity and divine blessing. B. Destruction and divine judgment. C. Agricultural success. D. The coming of a new prophet. Answer B. Destruction and divine judgment. Amos describes visions of locusts and fire which symbolize imminent destruction and divine judgment coming upon Israel as consequences for their sins. Amos 7-14. Question 23. What does Amos say will happen to the altars of Bethel? A. They will be adorned with gold. B. They will become pilgrimage sites. C. They will be destroyed. D. They will be relocated to Jerusalem. Answer: C. They will be destroyed. Amos prophesies that the altars of Bethel, which were central to Israel's idolatrous worship, will be destroyed, symbolizing the end of false religious practices and divine retribution. Amos 3:14. Question 24. How does the book of Amos end, and what hope does it offer? A. With complete despair and no hope. B. With a prediction of unending prosperity. C. With a promise of restoration and renewal for Israel. D. With the announcement of a new prophet. Answer: C. With a promise of restoration and renewal for Israel. The book of Amos ends with a promise of restoration and renewal, prophesying that the exiled people will be brought back and will rebuild their ruined cities, offering a note of hope despite the harsh judgments pronounced earlier. Amos 9:14-15. Question 25. In which chapter does Amos confront the priest of Bethel? A. Chapter 1. B. Chapter 3. C. Chapter 5. D. Chapter 7. Answer: D. Chapter 7. In Amos chapter 7, Amos confronts Amaziah, the priest of Bethel, who challenges his authority and right to prophecy in Israel, marking a significant conflict between true and false religious authority. Amos 7:10-17. Question 26. What is Amos's view on the disparity between the rich and the poor? A. He views it as justified by natural law. B. He is indifferent to economic issues. C. He criticizes the exploitation of the poor by the rich. D. He believes it should be increased. Answer: C. He criticizes the exploitation of the poor by the rich. Amos sharply criticizes the social and economic disparity between the rich and the poor, condemning the rich for their exploitation and mistreatment of the poor. Amos 2-6-7, 5:11-12. Question 27. What punishment does Amos predict will come from ignoring God's calls for justice? A. Increased wealth and prosperity. B. No consequences. C. Exile and destruction. D. Immediate forgiveness. Answer: C. Exile and destruction. Amos predicts that ignoring God's calls for justice will result in exile and destruction, emphasizing the serious consequences of continuing in their current unethical and unrighteous paths. Amos 5:27, 7:17. Question 28. How does Amos describe the future of Israel's adversaries? A. They will become allies of Israel. B. They will also be judged and punished. C. They will take over the land of Israel permanently. D. They will convert and adopt Israelite practices. Answer: B. They will also be judged and punished. Amos describes that Israel's adversaries will not escape judgment either. They too will be judged and punished for their own iniquities, illustrating the impartiality of divine justice. Amos 1-3, 2-3. Question 29. What does Amos prophesy about Israel's captivity? A. It will never happen. B. It will be brief and insignificant. C. It will be a long and harsh period. D. It will lead to spiritual renewal. Answer: C. It will be a long and harsh period. Amos prophesies that Israel's captivity will be a long and harsh period, a direct consequence of their persistent disobedience and moral decay. Amos 5:27. Question 30. How is the theme of social justice integrated throughout the Book of Amos? A. It is mentioned occasionally as a minor point. B. It is a central theme, with a call to righteousness and fairness. C. It is completely absent from the book. D. It is discouraged as disruptive. Answer B. It is a central theme, with a call to righteousness and fairness. The theme of social justice is central throughout the Book of Amos, as he calls for righteousness and fairness, particularly in the treatment of the poor and vulnerable, challenging the entire community to uphold justice. Amos 5:24.